Hello, Nelsen families. My name is Mr. Van Auken. I am a teacher here at Nelsen Middle School, and I'm also the technology integrative specialist as well. I teach eighth grade social studies, and my goal for this tutorial video is to help you understand Google Classroom. Okay, we want to try and support as many families as possible with a clear presentation on how to understand what your students should be working on, really the interface that teachers are going to use, so that everything is as simple as possible during this sort of complicated time with education. So we want to make sure that you have as much communication as possible and that families really understand what Google Classroom is. So for this video, we're really going to have three goals, okay? The first goal is for you to be able to understand what Google Classroom is. As the family members supporting your students, we want to make sure that you are familiar, just as familiar with Google Classroom as they are. So we want to understand what Google Classroom is really as a whole. The second one is to navigate Google Classroom. So there's really two sections of Google Classroom, and we want to make sure that you really are familiar with those two sections that your students are going to be accessing. And then the third thing is to understand how to find assignments and how to turn them in, because that's really the goal of Google Classroom. It is a program that your students' teachers are going to use to upload assignments, to push out assignments, to make announcements, to leave feedback, things like that. The whole point is Google Classroom is a sort of interactive classroom. Okay, so we have those three goals. What is Google Classroom? How to navigate Google Classroom, and then thirdly, how to understand how to find assignments and how to turn them in and understand the feedback that your students are given as well. Okay. So first part is you need to know how to access Google Classroom. I would say about 90%, 99% of our students should know how to do this already, but we want you to be just as familiar. So there are really three ways to access Google Classroom. First way being, you can simply in the Google browser in your student's Chromebook, you could just type in Google Classroom. And because you are using Google Chrome, Google Classroom is going to pop up. So your students can just search Google Classroom. And if you go down to the second one here that says classroom.google, you can go ahead and click on that. It will take you to Google Classroom. Another way to do that is if you are on the Google page, and your students should always be signed into their Google account. It doesn't really ever log them out. So they should always be signed in to their Google account. If they go and click on the Google apps here, you can see that there is a Google Classroom app that takes them to Google Classroom. And really the third way is if they go to their Hello ID application dashboard, there is a Google Classroom tab there. So there's really three ways to access Google Classroom on their computers. Okay, so we're going to exit out of all of these. That way, this is simple as possible. So once they open Google Classroom, you're going to see all of their classes right here. Okay, remember, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to have a little bit more classes, but your student, you should see about 4 to 5, maybe 6 classes on Google Classroom, depending if all their um, teachers are using Google Classroom. So remember, I have all my classes that I'm a teacher in. So I have all of these here, first, second, third, fifth, and sixth period. And then I'm also have these other classes that I'm also a teacher in. Your student is just going to have classes that they're enrolled in. Okay, and you know they're enrolled because it shows a little picture here and a little picture here of who the teachers are. So the teacher of this one is Anne Tremont, and the teacher of this one is Haley Mullen. Okay, I am a student in Miss Mullen's period one US history, just as a sample to show you guys what it's going to look like as the student view. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So I'm going to have her, my quote unquote, me as a student. This is what your student should be looking at. And then I'm also going to have my teacher one as well. Okay, just to show you the sort of differences a little bit. Okay, so for example, here is my first period. So I'm going to go back to classes really quick. So pretend your student is logging in. They're going to click on what they need to do in period one US history. This is what they're going to see. Okay, so now that we've